You think it's love. The ache, the longing, the sleepless nights that twist your chest until it hurts to breathe. You tell yourself that if it feels this intense, it must mean something real, something rare. But what if that pain isn't love at all? What if it's a wound disguised as desire, repeating itself through every heartbeat that still remembers being unseen? They told you that love should make you feel alive, and it does, just not in the way you imagined. It burns instead of warms. It consumes instead of connects. You wait for a message that never comes, for a voice that never stays, and you call that waiting devotion. But maybe it's not love you're waiting for. Maybe it's relief from a memory you've mistaken for a person. Because deep down, a quiet part of you already knows the truth. You are not chasing love. You are chasing something familiar. The silence that once surrounded you, the chaos that made you feel noticed, the pain that made you feel real. Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So here's the question. If the person who hurts you also makes you feel most alive, is that really love, or is it survival dressed as romance? Stay with that question, because once you see the difference, your entire idea of love might never look the same again.
In his patient notes from the early 20th century, Carl Jung observed a pattern that most people never see in themselves. He noticed that people unconsciously repeat the emotional experiences of their childhood, often in relationships that seem completely unrelated to their past. A person who grew up earning affection through suffering will, without realizing it, seek partners who make them suffer. Pain feels familiar, almost comforting, because it echoes the emotions they learned to associate with love. Jung called this the repetition compulsion of the psyche. It is a hidden force that drives us to relive old wounds over and over, hoping that this time, somehow, the story will end differently. But the psyche is relentless. It will recreate familiar dynamics until the underlying issue is brought into consciousness. Until then, people call it fate, coincidence, or bad luck, unaware that the same internal patterns are steering their lives. He also discovered something even more unsettling. Many people fall in love not with the actual person in front of them, but with the symbol that person represents. That partner becomes a mirror for a lost parent, a neglected child within themselves, or a disowned part of their psyche. The attraction is not really about connection. It is about reenactment, the unconscious attempt to resolve a wound that was never fully seen or healed. And every heartbreak, every betrayal, every cycle of hope and disappointment is the psyche's way of saying, "Look here, pay attention, this is where the work begins." Jung knew that until these unconscious patterns were recognized and integrated, the soul would keep repeating its painful lessons over and over again, masquerading as love.
Jung called this phenomenon the projection of the Anima and Animus, our unconscious inner feminine or masculine energies projected onto another person. When someone seems too perfect or eerily familiar, it's rarely who they truly are. Instead, they are carrying the qualities we have disowned, neglected, or never fully recognized within ourselves. We fall in love with an image, a reflection of our own missing parts, and call it passion. The meeting of two people is like a chemical reaction. When the projection hits its mark, it sparks intense emotions, almost like magic. But the problem is that this magic is an illusion. It blinds us to the reality of the other person and to the reality of ourselves. We are intoxicated by the version of them we see in our mind, not the person who stands before us. The more we invest in this illusion, the more we entangle ourselves in a cycle that often leads to disappointment, heartbreak, or confusion. Jung wrote that true transformation only happens when these projections are recognized and integrated. Until then, we remain caught in a feedback loop, mistaking emotional intensity for connection, chaos for love. Every argument, every longing, every fleeting moment of bliss is a reflection of what we are trying to reclaim internally. The challenge and the opportunity lies in seeing clearly, understanding that the person we pursue is also a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves we have yet to embrace. When we begin to notice these patterns, the world shifts. The illusions fade, the intensity quiets, and for the first time, we can experience relationships not as a mirror of our wounds, but as a space for true mutual growth.
Modern psychology gives Jung's insights a new language, a way to understand why so many people repeatedly fall into relationships that hurt them. What Jung described as projection and repetition is now recognized as trauma bonding, a powerful attachment to individuals who recreate the emotional highs and lows of our earliest experiences. The very chaos that once terrified us now feels addictive, thrilling, even comforting. Our brains release a cocktail of dopamine and cortisol, creating an emotional roller coaster that feels like love, but is really a chemical dependence on pain and relief. This cycle can feel intoxicating. The moments of intense connection, followed by conflict or withdrawal, keep the nervous system in a state of constant alertness. Each heartbreak becomes a lesson that is not consciously processed, but instead embedded in the body and psyche. Over time, people may find themselves drawn to partners who are unavailable, unpredictable, or even harmful, not because they want to be hurt, but because the pattern feels familiar and strangely safe. Safety, calmness, and consistency feel foreign to someone addicted to emotional turbulence. A partner who offers stability may be rejected unconsciously simply because the brain equates love with the drama it has always known. The paradox is cruel. People crave love, but are wired to chase the very pain that keeps them trapped. Understanding this dynamic is the first step to breaking the cycle. Once the pattern is recognized, it becomes possible to separate desire from survival, intensity from genuine connection, and chaos from love. This is where real healing begins.
Jung might describe the cycle of mistaking pain for love as a journey through 3 distinct stages, each one more revealing and more dangerous than the last. The first stage is projection. In this stage, we see in another person the qualities we have disowned or longed for within ourselves. They become a mirror for our unmet needs, our unresolved childhood wounds, and the parts of our psyche we have neglected. We are drawn to them not for who they are, but for what they represent, a temporary fulfillment of what we feel is missing inside. The second stage is possession. Once the projection takes hold, we become emotionally consumed by the fantasy. Every interaction, every glance, every word feels magnified. We are intoxicated by the highs and tormented by the lows. The relationship becomes a living replay of our unconscious patterns, and we mistake intensity for intimacy. The emotional dependency grows, and the boundary between our own identity and the projected image blurs. We cling, we chase, and we surrender our sense of self in the belief that this is love. The third stage is disillusion.
Reality inevitably pierces the illusion. The person we projected upon is revealed in their true form, flawed, human, unpredictable. Heartbreak, disappointment, or conflict follows, forcing us to confront the pattern we have unconsciously created. Most people stop here, running from the pain and seeking a new illusion to fill the void. But Jung believed there is a fourth stage, the path of integration, where the lesson of the cycle is fully realized. Only by recognizing the projection, reclaiming the parts of ourselves we've disowned, and breaking free from the cycle can we experience love as it was meant to be, authentic, reciprocal, and transformative.
Jung's ultimate solution to the cycle of pain and illusion in love is the process of integration and individuation, the journey toward becoming whole by acknowledging and embracing the parts of ourselves we have disowned or denied. True transformation does not come from seeking someone to complete us. It comes from discovering the missing pieces within and learning to hold them with compassion. When we integrate the shadow, the hidden, often painful aspects of our psyche, we stop projecting them onto others. We no longer unconsciously seek the chaos we once mistook for passion. Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This acceptance is not passive. It is a courageous confrontation with our own fears, insecurities, and unresolved wounds. It requires looking honestly at the patterns we have repeated, the relationships that have hurt us, and the familiar pain we have clung to for comfort." Integration is about feeling the loneliness, the longing, and the ache without trying to numb it or escape it. It is about experiencing love not as a reaction to a wound, but as a conscious choice rooted in awareness and self-respect. When individuation is achieved, relationships transform. We no longer seek someone to fix us or fill the void. Instead, we engage with others as whole individuals, capable of both giving and receiving authentic love. Peace, once frightening, becomes attainable. Emotional intensity, once addictive, becomes meaningful and manageable. The chaos of the past no longer defines our present. Jung's process reminds us that the journey inward is the only path to truly experiencing love that heals rather than harms, freedom that liberates rather than entraps, and connection that nurtures rather than destroys.
Jung once described a patient who seemed trapped in a cycle of heartbreak that repeated itself with uncanny precision. She consistently fell for unavailable men, each one echoing subtle traits of her distant father. At first glance, the pattern appeared random, even coincidental. But Jung saw it for what it was, a mirror reflecting unresolved wounds from her childhood. Every intense emotion, every longing glance, every fleeting moment of connection was not about the person before her. It was about the part of herself that had been neglected, the part desperate for recognition and love. She experienced the highs as intoxicating and the lows as devastating, never realizing that the real struggle lay within. Each heartbreak left her questioning her worth, wondering why she could not find someone who would stay. Jung guided her to see that she was not failing in love. She was seeking something familiar. The pain, the yearning,
the pursuit of unavailable partners had become a way to reenact the unresolved dynamics of her early life. Through therapy, she began to reclaim the parts of herself that had been projected onto others. She learned to recognize the patterns, to sit with her pain instead of chasing a reflection, and to nurture the love she had been seeking all along within herself. Slowly, the intensity that once felt like passion transformed into clarity. She stopped mistaking chaos for connection. She began to experience relationships as genuine, reciprocal, and healing. Jung's insight revealed a profound truth. When love becomes a mirror, the reflection is not the other person. It is a call to awaken the self.
If this story feels familiar, you are not alone. We live in a world that glorifies emotional chaos, where movies, songs, and social media portray toxic passion as the ultimate proof of love. The excitement, the drama, the heartbreak, all of it is celebrated, even romanticized. But beneath the glamour of intensity lies a harsh truth. Many people are repeating unconscious patterns that keep them trapped in pain, mistaking it for love. Your own relationships may serve as a mirror, reflecting the parts of yourself you have yet to face. The partners you are drawn to, the conflicts that arise again and again, even the fleeting moments of longing, they are all signals from your psyche, urging you to look inward. Modern psychology calls this pattern recognition. It is the awareness that your emotional experiences are not random. They are connected to past wounds, early attachment styles, and unhealed trauma. The paradox is striking. Those who seem most difficult to love are often mirrors for the love you have denied yourself. People who are calm, consistent, and safe may feel unsettling because your nervous system has been conditioned to expect chaos. Understanding this dynamic is the first step toward freedom. By recognizing the patterns in your own life, you begin to separate the illusion from reality. You learn to see relationships not as a replay of old pain, but as an opportunity for growth, self-awareness, and authentic connection. The mirror is there, not to punish you, but to awaken you.
Here lies the paradox that Jung revealed. The very pain you have mistaken for love is often the doorway to your deepest healing. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every cycle of longing and disappointment is not a punishment, it is an invitation. It is an opportunity to confront the parts of yourself that have been neglected, abandoned, or ignored. The chaos that once consumed you is a guide pointing toward the wholeness you have yet to embrace. Love was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal you. Each repetition, each emotional storm is your psyche's way of saying, "Look here. This is where your growth begins. This is where freedom lies." When you learn to see the difference between pain and genuine love, the world transforms. The intensity that once felt addictive becomes informative. The heartbreak that once felt crushing becomes a teacher. And the longing that once felt endless becomes a signal of what you truly need within yourself. Transformation begins with awareness, continues with integration, and matures into conscious choice. When you stop mistaking chaos for connection and recognize love as a reflection of wholeness rather than absence, you step into a new way of being. Real love, once elusive, becomes attainable. Peace, once foreign, becomes familiar.
Emotional intensity no longer rules your life, and the storms of the past no longer dictate your present. The journey is not easy, but it is profound. The pain you once chased becomes the path that leads you to freedom, self-discovery, and a love that heals rather than harms.
If you recognize yourself in this journey, take a moment to breathe. The patterns, the cycles, the emotional intensity you have experienced are not random. They are messages from your unconscious guiding you toward awareness. Your relationships, your heartbreaks, and even your moments of longing are mirrors, reflecting parts of yourself that have yet to be fully seen and embraced. The first step toward transformation is acknowledging that the struggle is not with others, but within you. We live in a culture that romanticizes suffering, that equates chaos with passion and confusion with depth. But Jung reminds us that true growth comes not from chasing illusions, but from facing our own shadows. When you begin to see clearly, the illusions fall away. The people you once thought were indispensable become mirrors revealing your inner wounds, and each heartbreak becomes an invitation to reclaim the love you have been seeking inside yourself. Ask yourself, when love no longer hurts, will you recognize it? When peace feels unfamiliar, will you allow yourself to stay in it? These questions are not easy, and the answers may challenge everything you thought you knew about connection, desire, and intimacy. But they are necessary. Awareness is the doorway to freedom. Awareness allows you to engage with love consciously, choosing connection instead of chaos, presence instead of projection, and healing instead of repetition. Remember Jung's words, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Turn the mirror toward yourself. Sit with your truth. Feel the ache, the longing, and the fear, not to run from it, but to integrate it. The path ahead is not simple, but it is profoundly liberating. By doing this work, you stop mistaking pain for love and begin to experience relationships as they were meant to be: authentic, reciprocal, and transformative. The journey inward is the journey toward freedom, and the awakening you seek has always been within you.